So, before Russia's overnight shelling, cyber attacks targeted Ukraine's government and banking websites, similar to those that U.S. agencies have attributed to Russia in the past. Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner is here to discuss. He is the chairman for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator, thank you for joining us this morning. You know, before the physical escalation, before we saw troops and the shelling in Ukraine, as we mentioned, there were cyber attacks. This is not new for Ukraine, though. I mean, this has been going on since sort of the early 2000s, if you will. But can you talk about why this seems to be the way things unfold? Why it seems that Russia first stages these cyber attacks before following up with something else, and why the cyber attacks can be so detrimental?
Well, first of all, let's look at what's happening. I mean, the American intelligence community has been spot on in their predictions. They have said literally for weeks, if not months, that the 190,000 troops that Putin has surrounding Ukraine, that Putin was going to launch an attack that was not just going to be in the east. It was going to take on all the major cities in Ukraine. And I actually believe the Russians will try to occupy, at least for some period of time, major portions of Ukraine. You don't bring 190,000 troops if you're not going to bring them into the country. We've been concerned for some time that the Ukrainians didn't fully mobilize their forces. And unfortunately, they're a little late on that mobilization. I do think we've seen these images also for weeks of Ukrainians training on the weekends to fight back, even if their military is not successful. So Putin is going to have a level of insurgency on his hands, unlike anything that we've seen in modern times, because I believe the Ukrainians will resist. Putin also has been an expert at some time. If you look at his other interventions in other nations, in Georgia, in Crimea, elsewhere, in hybrid war, where cyber attacks precede the kinetic invasion. And we've seen earlier, literally in 2017, Russia launched a major cyber attack against Ukraine. It was called a NotPetya attack. It literally, once a cyber piece of malware is put into the networks, it knows no geographic boundaries. So that ended up shutting down billions of dollars of operations in the West, including part of the British healthcare system, including international shipping stations. It actually even cost Russia because all these networks are combined. So here's my two immediate concerns on the cyber front. That was one piece of malware. Russia literally has thousands of pieces of cyber weapons, malware, that they could unleash on Ukraine. If they unleash those now at an even greater level, there's nothing that would say they will be constrained by Ukraine's geographic boundaries. We've seen those American troops on the eastern side of Poland. If the Russians decide to shut down all the power in Ukraine, turn off the internet, and that ends up shutting down the power in eastern Poland, you could have Polish or even potentially American casualties come from that. So this notion of cyber warfare can rapidly expand across geographic boundaries. Secondly, if we and our allies all launch these massive sanctions against Russia, which we must, I think Putin has indicated that he will try to inflict harm, economic harm, on Europeans and Americans. And again, that could come in the form of direct cyber attack against the West, including America. And suddenly you're into an area that has been talked about hypothetically about what kind of cyber incident might constitute an act of war, or in the case of NATO Article 5, where if you attack Poland at some level, does that mean all of NATO is attacked? We may be quickly out of the hypothetical into the real, literally in the next few days.
Very quickly, we have a bipartisan condemnation of what Russia has done there. What are both parties doing to work together to support Ukraine?
Well, I've been working with my Republican colleagues. We've come out with unified statements ahead of this invasion. We will stand behind the president in terms of upping assistance to NATO in continuing to supply whatever is left of a Ukrainian government. And some of those arms that we've sent over to Ukraine, I think, have been distributed to the population. We are united in our sanctions against Putin and his nefarious actions. Matter of fact, there are only a few outliers, some even right-wing media personalities who seem to embrace Putin. And candidly, I was dismayed would be an understatement when I saw the former president, Mr. Trump, actually praising Putin a day or two ago. I hope he changes his tune as well so that the United States can be fully united. In Congress, the vast majority of us, Democrats and Republicans, know this is an unprovoked attack on a Western democracy. And if Putin is at all successful here, this kind of bullying activity will not stop at the borders of Ukraine.
Senator, this is a dramatic escalation to what you just said right there. Is there any possibility that Congress will be called back early?
I think I'm sure all of us would be prepared to be called back if the president calls us. But I think we have given the president the tools he needs. He sanctioned the Nord Stream 2 project yesterday. I think that was smart, but also he did that in concert with our German allies who had shut down Nord Stream 2 the day before. So I think this coordination with our NATO allies, I think the fact that you now hear Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Australia, a host of other nations all weighing in, condemning Putin as a result of an awful lot of diplomatic work behind the scenes.
Senator Mark Warner, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.